I am Amelia 32, and I thought this family reunion would finally be different. After years building my career in finance, I returned to the Jackson estate with hope in my heart and a gift in my hands. My mother always said family connections heal with time, so I came ready to bridge the gap. But as I walked through the grand entrance, my smile froze. There, on the ornate family tree display among the carefully penned names, I saw mine scratched out with deliberate strokes. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family. Growing up in Mapleton, Ohio, wasn't easy when you were known as the daughter of the black sheep of the prestigious Jackson family. My mother, Elizabeth, had fallen in love with my father against her parents' wishes. He was a factory worker with no pedigree or connections, the exact opposite of what my grandparents wanted for their daughter. When she got pregnant with me, they gave her an ultimatum: end the relationship or be cut off from the family fortune. My mother chose love. Unfortunately, that love didn't last. My father abandoned us when I was just 4 years old, leaving my mother to raise me alone in a small two-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town, far from the sprawling Jackson estate where she had grown up. Despite their differences, my grandparents occasionally sent money, usually around holidays or my birthday. But these gifts always came with strings attached, invitations to family events where my mother would be subtly criticized, and I would be evaluated as if my existence was an ongoing judgment of her choices. "Remember your posture, Amelia," Aunt Patricia would say, adjusting my shoulders at the annual Christmas gathering. "A proper Jackson stands tall." My mother never complained about our circumstances. She worked 2 jobs as a receptionist during the day and waiting tables at night to make sure I had everything I needed. On rare evenings when she wasn't working, she would tell me stories about her childhood in the big house on the hill. Not with bitterness, but with fondness for the good memories. The library was magical, she would say, eyes bright with reminiscence. Floor-to-ceiling books and a ladder that slid along rails so you could reach the highest shelves. Someday you'll see it. School became my sanctuary. While other children in my situation might have rebelled or given up, I channeled my energy into academics. Every A on my report card felt like a victory, a way to prove to my extended family that we were doing just fine without their approval. When I was 12, my Uncle Robert, my mother's older brother, and the apparent heir to the family business, visited our apartment unexpectedly. I remember hiding behind the door of my bedroom listening as he spoke to my mother in patronizing tones. "Elizabeth, this has gone on long enough," he said. "Mother and father are getting older. Come back to the family properly. We can find Amelia a good school, give her the advantages of the Jackson name." My mother's voice was quiet but firm. "And what would be required of us, Robert?" "That I admit I made a mistake, that I pretend to be someone I'm not. Amelia is doing wonderfully in school. She doesn't need the Jackson name to succeed." He left shortly after, and that night my mother came to my room and sat on the edge of my bed. "Amelia," she said, taking my hands in hers, "I want you to know something important. Success isn't about where you come from or what your last name is. It's about working hard and being true to yourself. Promise me you'll remember that." I promised, and kept that promise through high school, where I graduated as valedictorian despite working part-time jobs to help with expenses. When college acceptance letters arrived, I received a full scholarship to Northwestern University. My mother cried with joy when I told her, but the reaction from my extended family was tepid at best. "Northwestern," my grandfather said with a slight frown when we announced it at an obligatory Easter visit. "I suppose that's acceptable. Though Harvard would have been better, I could have made a call." My grandmother added, "Business is it well. I suppose that's practical, though the arts would have made you more well-rounded." I learned to smile through these interactions, to thank them for their input while inwardly rejecting it. My mother had taught me the power of quiet dignity, and I wielded it like armor at every family gathering we were obligated to attend. The summer before I left for college, my grandmother invited me to tea alone. It was unusual, and my mother seemed nervous about it but encouraged me to go. The Jackson estate was imposing as ever with its manicured gardens and columned entrance. The housekeeper led me to the sunroom where my grandmother waited perfectly poised in an expensive cream-colored suit despite the casual setting. "Amelia," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her, You look well. Tea? The conversation was stilted, at first discussions of weather and my summer job at the local bookstore. But eventually, she reached into her purse and withdrew an envelope. "This is for your education," she said, sliding it across the table. "Not your tuition, of course, as you have your scholarship, but for books-appropriate clothing and other necessities." I started to thank her, but she held up one manicured hand. "There are conditions. You will major in finance, not general business. You will join the appropriate clubs and make the right connections. And you will spend holidays here, not in that apartment with your mother. It's time you learned what it means to be a Jackson." I looked at the envelope, then back at my grandmother's expectant face. Without touching the money, I stood up. "Thank you for the tea, grandmother, and for the offer, but I can't accept money that comes with conditions about who I should be or who I should love. My mother taught me better than that." The drive home was a blur of tears and anger, but when I told my mother what happened, she just hugged me and said she was proud. "You're already so much stronger than I was at your age," she whispered. College life opened new worlds for me. Away from the shadow of the Jackson family, I thrived. I made friends who knew nothing about my complicated family history and liked me for who I was. I excelled in my classes and secured prestigious internships each summer. The distance from home also gave me perspective on my family situation. My mother and I spoke on the phone every Sunday, and I came home for brief visits when I could. During my junior year, these calls took on a more urgent tone. My mother was tired all the time, she said. Probably just overwork. It wasn't overwork. It was stage 3 ovarian cancer. I wanted to drop out and come home to care for her, but she refused to let me. "Your education is everything we've worked for," she insisted. "I'll be fine." For the next year, I split my time between school and home watching, as my vibrant, strong mother faded before my eyes. The Jackson family made appearances at the hospital, bringing flowers and offering to pay for experimental treatments, gestures that seemed more about easing their consciences than truly helping. My mother passed away 2 weeks after I graduated summa cum laude. At her funeral, the Jacksons sat in the front row as if they'd been there through all the hard years. Uncle Robert gave a eulogy that painted a picture of a beloved sister who had made unfortunate choices but was always welcomed back. It took everything in me not to stand up and correct his revisionist history. After the service, my grandfather approached me. "You'll come stay at the house now, of course," he said as if it were decided. "No need for you to be alone." I declined as politely as I could, explaining that I had already accepted a position with a financial firm in New York and would be moving the following week. The look of surprise on his face was small compensation for years of conditional love, but it was something. In the 2 years that followed, I built a life in New York, far from the complications of the Jackson family. I visited my mother's grave whenever I returned to Ohio, but otherwise avoided family gatherings. The occasional call or card arrived, usually around holidays, but I kept my responses polite and brief. Then last month, the invitation arrived. Thick cream paper with gold embossing announced the Jackson family reunion, a weekend event at the family estate. A handwritten note from Aunt Patricia was included. "Amelia, dear, we've missed you. It's time to heal old wounds. Family is family after all." "Try with them, Amelia." She had set her hand frail in mine. "Not for their sake, but for yours. Carrying anger hurts the person holding it most. Promise me you'll try when you're ready." So I RSVP'd yes to the reunion, telling myself I was keeping a promise, giving them one more chance to be the family my mother had always hoped they could be. The promotion to senior investment advisor came with a corner office overlooking Manhattan's skyline, and a salary that would have made my 16-year-old self working weekends at the mall food court gasp in disbelief. At 32, I had built the kind of life my mother had always dreamed I would have: financial security, professional respect, and complete independence. My apartment in the Upper West Side was small by Jackson family standards, but it was mine, filled with books and art. I had chosen furniture I had saved for. It was a physical representation of the distance I had put between myself and my family's expectations and judgments. That distance had been deliberate and carefully maintained. In the years following my mother's death, I had limited my contact with the Jacksons to Christmas cards and occasional polite emails when absolutely necessary. I declined invitations to weddings, birthdays, and previous family gatherings with brief professional regrets citing work commitments. It wasn't exactly a lie I did throw myself into my work, building a reputation as someone who would stay late, take on challenging clients, and deliver results. So when Aunt Patricia's invitation arrived in the mail, actual paper mail, not an email or text, I was surprised enough to open it immediately rather than setting it aside with bills and promotions. The invitation itself was typically Jackson heavy cream cardstock gold embossed lettering announcing the annual Jackson family reunion at the family estate. But it was the handwritten note on Jackson family stationery that caught me off guard. Dearest Amelia, Aunt Patricia had written in her flowing script, it has been far too long since we've seen you. The family has been discussing how much we miss your presence at our gatherings, and everyone agrees it's time to heal old wounds. Your mother would want us to come together again as a family. Please say you'll come. With love, Aunt Patricia. I set the invitation on my kitchen counter and stared at it while making dinner, while washing dishes, while preparing for a client meeting the next day. It was still there 3 days later, demanding a response. In a moment of weakness, or perhaps strength, I wasn't sure I called the number on the invitation. Aunt Patricia answered on the second ring, her voice warm with what seemed like genuine pleasure. Amelia, how wonderful to hear from you. Tell me you're calling with good news. I'm considering it, I said cautiously. It's been a long time. Too long, she agreed. Everyone is so excited about the possibility of seeing you. Your cousins ask about you all the time. Jessica is especially eager to reconnect. Jessica had been my closest cousin growing up, just a year older than me. We had drifted apart during my mother's illness and after her death. But I still remembered summers spending hours together in the tree swing behind the Jackson estate, sharing secrets and plans. Is she well? I asked, softening despite myself. Wonderful, married now with twins. She's coming in from Chicago for the reunion. She'll be so thrilled you might be there too. The conversation continued, with Patricia asking polite questions about my work and life in New York, making appropriate sounds of admiration at my accomplishments. By the time we hung up, I had agreed to attend the reunion. As the date approached, I vacillated between hope and anxiety. What should I wear to show I was successful but not trying too hard? What gift would be appropriate but not ostentatious? I finally settled on a navy blue dress from a designer my colleagues admired. But that wouldn't scream, look how well I'm doing, to my family. For a gift, I commissioned a custom updated family tree illustration from an artist I had discovered at a gallery opening, thinking it would be meaningful without being showy. The week before the reunion, Jessica called. We hadn't spoken in at least 5 years, and her voice was both familiar and strange. Amelia, I just heard you're coming. I can't believe it, she gushed. We have so much to catch up on. Yes, I agreed, finding myself smiling despite my reservations. It's been too long. Too long, she echoed Aunt Patricia's words. Listen, I know things haven't always been easy with the family, but everyone's really excited you're coming. Even grandfather mentioned it at Sunday dinner last week. That caught me by surprise. My grandfather was not a man who mentioned people casually. Really? What did he say? There was the slightest pause before Jessica answered. Just that it would be good to have all the Jacksons together again. That families should stick together. We chatted for a while longer about her children, my job, mutual acquaintances from childhood. By the time we hung up, my reservations had softened further. Maybe this reunion really was about healing old wounds. Maybe the family had changed, had realized what they had lost by pushing my mother away, by keeping me at arm's length. The drive from New York to Ohio was long enough to cycle through every possible scenario for the reunion. In the best case, there would be genuine reconciliation, the beginning of new, healthier relationships with my extended family. In the worst case, I would endure a weekend of passive-aggressive comments and thinly veiled judgments, then return to my life in New York with the satisfaction of having kept my promise to my mother to try. As I drove, I passed landmarks from my childhood, The ice cream shop where my mother would take me as a special treat when she got her paycheck, the park where we would have picnics on her rare days off the hospital, where she had spent her final months. Memories flooded back not just of the hardships, but of the love and strength that had defined our small family of two. The closer I got to Mapleton, the more my stomach tightened with anticipation and anxiety. I stopped at a hotel just outside town to freshen up before continuing to the Jackson estate. In the bathroom mirror, I studied my reflection. My mother's eyes looked back at me, determined and clear. I applied fresh lipstick, adjusted my dress, and gave myself a firm nod. "For you, Mom," I whispered. "I'm trying just like I promised." My phone pinged with a text message as I was leaving the hotel. It was from Jessica. "Can't wait to see you. Everyone's here already. Safe drive." The message bolstered my courage. At least one person was genuinely looking forward to my arrival. With renewed determination, I got back in my car for the final stretch of the journey, telling myself that whatever happened this weekend, I was doing it for the right reasons. I was honoring my mother's memory and giving the family one more chance to be what she had always hoped they would be. As I turned onto the long driveway leading to the Jackson estate, I allowed myself to hope that this reunion might be the beginning of something new, something healing. Little did I know it would instead reveal just how little had changed and how much I had grown beyond the need for their approval. The Jackson family estate sprawled across 5 acres of meticulously landscaped grounds, the colonial-style mansion visible from half a mile down the private drive. As a child, visiting had always filled me with a mixture of awe and intimidation. Now pulling up to the circular driveway in my modest but well-maintained car, I felt a twinge of the same emotions, though tempered by years of independence. Luxury vehicles lined the driveway, Mercedes BMWs, a Bentley I assumed belonged to my grandfather. I parked behind a Range Rover and checked my appearance one last time in the rearview mirror before gathering my overnight bag and the carefully wrapped family tree gift. The front door opened before I reached it, revealing Aunt Patricia in an expensive-looking pale blue dress, pearls gleaming at her neck and wrists. Her smile seemed warm, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Amelia." At last. She air-kissed near each of my cheeks, a cloud of Chanel perfume enveloping me. "Let me look at you. So New York chic. Come in, everyone's gathering in the main parlor." I followed her through the grand entrance hall, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The house was exactly as I remembered imposing portraits of Jackson ancestors, antique furniture too valuable to actually use fresh flower arrangements that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "What a lovely gift," Patricia said, taking the package from my hands. "I'll just put this with the others. Thomas will take your bag up to your room. You're in the blue guest suite. Go on in and say hello to everyone while I take care of these things." The main parlor was filled with relatives in various groupings, cocktails in hand, voices creating a buzz of conversation that quieted noticeably when I entered. For a moment, all eyes turned toward me, and I forced myself to smile with confidence I didn't quite feel. Amelia. My cousin Jessica emerged from the crowd looking polished in designer jeans and a silk blouse, her blonde hair cut in an elegant bob. She embraced me with what felt like genuine warmth. "You look amazing. New York clearly agrees with you." "Thanks, Jess. You look great too. Motherhood suits you." She beamed. "The twins are with a sitter upstairs if you want to meet them later. But first, come say hello to everyone. It's been so long." Jessica led me through the room, making introductions that weren't really necessary since I remembered most of my relatives, though many had aged or changed in the years since I'd seen them. Conversations felt stilted with relatives asking superficial questions about New York and my job, but quickly moving on before any real connection could form. My grandparents were seated in matching wingback chairs near the fireplace, holding court like royalty at a formal reception. My grandmother extended her hand to me, her grip cool and dry. "Amelia, you've arrived safely. Good." My grandfather merely nodded his eyes, assessing me critically. "New York treating you well, I see." Before I could respond beyond a polite murmur, they had already turned their attention to another relative, effectively dismissing me. Jessica squeezed my arm sympathetically and guided me toward the refreshment table. "Wine, you might need it," she said, with a laugh that held a note of apology. I accepted the glass, gratefully taking a fortifying sip. So, has anything changed around here in the past few years? Not really, Jessica admitted. Same traditions, same discussions about the family business, same pecking order. We chatted for a few more minutes before she was called away by her husband. Left alone, I wandered the edges of the gathering, noticing how conversations seemed to shift or halt as I approached. At one point, I overheard Uncle Robert speaking to a group of male relatives. Banking is a Jackson tradition, of course, though some branches of the family seem to think they can reinvent the wheel. He glanced my way with a smirk. I moved to another part of the room, trying to find a comfortable place to stand someone approachable to talk to. That's when I noticed the display set up on a side table a large, ornately framed family tree different from the historical one that had always hung in the library. This one was updated to include recent marriages and births. Curious, I approached it, scanning the branches for my mother's name. I found her a thin line connecting her to my father's name with a question mark beside it, as if his very existence was uncertain. Below their names should have been mine. My breath caught in my throat. There it was, my name written in elegant calligraphy like all the others, but with deliberate scratches through it almost gouging the expensive paper. It wasn't an accident or a child's mischief. The scratching was precise, intentional. Oh, that. Uncle Robert's voice came from behind me, making me start. The calligrapher made an error in the placement. We're having it redone, of course. But the look in his eyes told a different story. This was a message clear as day despite the invitation, despite Aunt Patricia's note about healing old wounds. I was still not considered a true Jackson. I maintained my composure, years of navigating difficult client meetings coming to my aid. I see. How unfortunate. Dinner was announced then, saving me from further conversation with Robert. As we moved toward the dining room, I noticed I'd been seated at the furthest table from the family patriarchs, with distant cousins and their spouses, rather than any immediate family. Jessica caught my eye from her place near our grandparents and gave me an apologetic look but said nothing. Throughout the elaborate dinner service, I maintained a pleasant expression, making polite conversation with those around me, while acutely aware of my exclusion from the main family table. The expensive gift I had brought remained unopened, with the others set aside on a table near the entrance. When I tried to join a conversation about investment strategies, my professional area of expertise was some uncles and male cousins. They listened briefly before one said, "Well, that's an interesting perspective, though, perhaps a bit simplistic. But then New York finance is different from real family business." Their conversation resumed as if I hadn't spoken a clear dismissal. Later, I found myself alone near the dessert table when Cousin Brad approached, a smirk on his face that reminded me uncomfortably of our childhood interactions. "So, the scholarship girl returns," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Funny how you stayed away until you made something of yourself. Some might call that opportunistic." "I stayed away because I wasn't welcome," I replied evenly. "The scratched out name on the family tree makes that pretty clear." Brad's smile widened. "Oh, you noticed that. Don't take it personally. After all, you're only half Jackson, and that's being generous considering we're not even sure who your father really was." The casual cruelty of the remark stung, but I refused to show it. My mother never lied about who my father was, and half Jackson or not, I've made my own way without trading on the family name. "Is that so?" Brad laughed. "Well, enjoy the weekend, cousin. It should be illuminating for all of us." As he walked away, I caught Jessica watching the interaction from across the room, concern evident on her face. But like earlier, she made no move to intervene or show support, standing there among relatives who clearly still viewed me as an outsider despite their pretense of reconciliation. I realized the invitation had not been about healing at all. Something else was at play here, some reason they wanted me present despite their continued disdain. And by the end of the evening, as I made my way to the assigned guest room, feeling emotionally exhausted, I was determined to discover exactly what that reason was. The formal dinner the following evening was held in the grand dining room, a cavernous space dominated by a mahogany table that could seat 30 without extensions. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across sterling silver place settings, and hand-painted china that had been in the family for generations. I arrived precisely on time, having spent most of the day exploring the grounds alone after a breakfast where I'd been largely ignored. The seating arrangement was even more pointed than the previous evening. I was placed at the very foot of the table, as far from my grandparents at the head as physically possible. Grandfather stood as everyone settled into their places, raising his crystal water glass in a toast. "To the Jackson family," he intoned solemnly. "To those who uphold our values and continue our legacy through their commitment to family and tradition." His eyes moved around the table, acknowledging each family member with a slight nod, each except me. The slight was subtle, but unmistakable. As servers began bringing the first course, Patricia's husband Thomas leaned toward me from his seat nearby. "Tell me, Amelia, what's it like working for someone else rather than building something of your own? Must be so much simpler having a paycheck without the responsibility of creating a legacy." Before I could respond, he continued with a theatrical whisper loud enough for those nearby to hear. "But then, not everyone has the background to understand what it means to build generational wealth. New money tends to focus on the immediate, doesn't it?" Several relatives chuckled, and I felt heat rising in my cheeks. I took a sip of water, composing my response. "Actually, my role involves helping clients build and protect their wealth across generations. Many are first-generation success stories who want to create lasting legacies. I find it rewarding to help people who've earned their success secure it for their families." The emphasis on earned wasn't subtle, and Thomas's smile tightened slightly before he turned to speak with someone else. The conversation turned to family investments, with Uncle Robert holding forth about a recent acquisition the Jackson Group had made. The Westfield properties were undervalued, of course. We recognized the potential immediately and moved decisively. Several relatives nodded appreciatively, though I noticed Jessica's husband looking skeptical. Having researched the market thoroughly for a client interested in similar properties, I knew the Westfield acquisition had been overpriced, a desperation move by a seller facing bankruptcy. When there was a pause in the conversation, I spoke up. "The Westfield purchase was interesting timing. Their commercial occupancy rates have been declining for the past 3 quarters." Robert's face flushed slightly. "Sometimes you have to look beyond current numbers to see future potential, not something they likely teach in entry-level investment positions." "Actually, I began but was interrupted by the arrival of the main course lobster thermidor, a Jackson family tradition for special occasions. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I had developed a shellfish allergy in my 20s. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to cause significant discomfort. At the last family event I'd attended before my mother's illness, I'd mentioned it to Patricia, who had been in charge of the menu. As the server placed the lobster before me, I quietly asked if there was an alternative available. The server looked uncomfortable. "I'll have to check with the kitchen, miss," Patricia overheard. "Is there a problem, Amelia? The lobster is a special preparation for the reunion." "I have a shellfish allergy now," I explained. "I mentioned it a few years ago, but it's been a while." Patricia's expression was one of exaggerated concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh dear, how unfortunate. I'm sure the kitchen can find something. Perhaps some chicken fingers from what we're serving the children." Laughter rippled around the table, and the server left looking embarrassed on my behalf. When he returned, he placed before me what was indeed a child's meal: chicken tenders and French fries on a plastic plate, featuring cartoon characters. The humiliation was clearly intentional. "Thank you," I said to the server with as much dignity as I could muster. "This is fine." As the dinner continued, I ate quietly, participating minimally in conversation. During a lull, I excused myself to visit the restroom, needing a moment away from the thinly veiled hostility. In the hallway, I paused to look at the portraits lining the walls: generations of Jacksons in oils, and more recently, professional photography. A space where my mother's portrait should have been was conspicuously empty. When I returned to the dining room, Uncle Robert was in the middle of a speech about the Jackson family legacy. For over a century, the Jackson name has stood for integrity, excellence, and commitment to certain values. He was saying, glass raised. "We've weathered challenges by staying true to our principles and supporting those who uphold what this family represents." His gaze swept the table and landed pointedly on me for a beat before moving on. "And by recognizing those who truly belong." The implication hung in the air like a storm cloud. I kept my expression neutral, years of professional poker faces serving me well. After dessert, as coffee was being served, Jessica slid into an empty seat beside me. Her cheeks were flushed with wine, her words slightly slurred. "I'm sorry about all this," she whispered. "I wanted it to be different." "Why was I really invited, Jess?" I asked quietly. It clearly wasn't for reconciliation. Jessica glanced around, then leaned closer. "It wasn't my idea. Uncle Robert and Grandfather insisted. Something about showing a united family front right now. They said," she hesitated, "said what? That having you here was an obligation, not because they wanted to reconnect." She looked genuinely sorry. "I should have warned you." Before she could elaborate, Patricia appeared behind us, placing a hand on each of our shoulders. "Reminiscing about old times, girls. How lovely." Her grip on my shoulder tightened almost imperceptibly, and then, as she withdrew her hand, her wine glass tilted, splashing red liquid across the front of my navy dress. "Oh!" Patricia exclaimed with unconvincing dismay. "How clumsy of me! Your beautiful dress, I'm so sorry." Around the table I caught several hidden smiles, a few exchanged glances. This too had been deliberate. Standing with as much composure as I could gather, I dabbed at the stain with my napkin. "No harm done," I said evenly. "If you'll excuse me, I'll go clean up." As I left the dining room, head held high, despite the burning humiliation, I heard muffled laughter behind me. The message couldn't have been clearer, despite the invitation. Despite my success, I was still the outsider, still not truly a Jackson in their eyes. But as I climbed the stairs to change my dress, determination replaced embarrassment. I had come here honoring my mother's wish for reconciliation. Now I would stay to discover why they had really wanted me here, what game they were playing. And whatever it was, I would face it with the strength and dignity my mother had taught me, qualities that made me more of a Jackson than any of them, whether they acknowledged it or not. In the upstairs bathroom, I soaked a towel in cold water and dabbed at the wine stain spreading across the front of my dress. My hands trembled slightly with suppressed emotion, but I focused on the task, refusing to give in to the tears threatening to form. This wasn't the first time the Jackson family had tried to humiliate me, and I would not give them the satisfaction of breaking my composure. As I worked on the stain, I studied my reflection in the ornate mirror. My mother's eyes looked back at me, determined and clear despite the hurt. She had faced far worse from this family and had maintained her dignity throughout. I could do no less. With the stain somewhat contained, I made my way down the hallway toward the blue guest suite to change clothes. Passing a partially open door, I glimpsed a familiar piece of furniture, the antique sideboard that had always housed family photo albums. On impulse, I slipped inside the room, a small study rarely used by the family. The albums were arranged chronologically, and I pulled out one from my childhood years. Flipping through, I found what I was looking for, a photo from a summer picnic when I was about 8, standing proudly next to my mother. Someone had taken a pen to the image, drawing an X across my face and writing, "Not a real Jackson," in cramped letters along the margin. The childish defacement might have been done years ago, but the album had been recently handled. There was no dust on its cover, unlike the others nearby. Someone had wanted me to find this another message reinforcing my outsider status. Replacing the album, I continued to my room and changed into a simple black dress I'd packed as a backup. The practical side of me had anticipated some sort of accident might occur. When I returned to the dining room, the atmosphere had shifted. Dessert plates were being cleared, and relatives had broken into smaller conversational groups. I slipped into my seat, quietly determined to observe rather than engage. From my position, I could overhear Uncle Robert speaking with my grandfather and several male cousins, their voices low but audible in a momentary lull of conversation. "The banking commission is asking more questions," Robert was saying, concern evident in his tone. "We need to show stability and family unity right now." Grandfather nodded gravely. "The Jackson name still carries weight. If we present a united front, this will pass." "What about the West Haven account?" This from Brad, his expression serious for once. "If that comes under scrutiny." "It won't," Robert interrupted firmly. "We've taken care of it. The family stands together on this, understood." Their eyes flickered briefly toward me before they shifted topics, suddenly discussing golf with exaggerated interest. So there was trouble with the family business, trouble serious enough that they needed to project family unity, which explained my invitation despite their clear disdain. The realization crystallized my thoughts. I wasn't here for reconciliation. I was a prop in a performance aimed at convincing others that the Jackson family was solid and unified. I maintained my position sipping coffee and observing the room with new understanding. After a while, Jessica approached again, her expression apologetic. "You changed. I'm sorry about Aunt Patricia. That was awful." "It's fine," I replied calmly. "But I think it's time you told me what's really happening here, Jess. Why am I actually here?" Jessica glanced around nervously. "Not here. Meet me on the terrace in 15 minutes." She drifted away to speak with her husband, and I continued my quiet observation of the family dynamics. When enough time had passed, I slipped out to the terrace, a flagstone area, overlooking the immaculate gardens now silvered by moonlight. Jessica was already there, wrapped in a cashmere shawl against the evening chill. She looked troubled, her earlier tipsiness apparently sobered by whatever she planned to tell me. "The family business is in trouble," she said without preamble. "Serious trouble. Grandfather and Uncle Robert made some bad investments over the past few years, and there's an investigation pending into some of their banking practices." "I gathered something was wrong," I replied. "But what does that have to do with me?" Jessica twisted the fringe of her shawl between her fingers. "Your name, or rather your reputation. You've made quite a name for yourself in financial circles in New York. Very respected, very clean record." The pieces clicked into place. "They've been using my connection to the family in some way. Dropping your name in meetings, implying you're involved or at least supportive of family ventures." She looked genuinely regretful. "I didn't know until recently. They needed to have you here, to be seen reconnecting with the family to support their narrative of all the Jacksons stand together when questions are being asked." The manipulation was breathtaking in its audacity. "So, the invitation, Patricia's note about healing old wounds, all of it was just to use me as a prop in their damage control." "Yes," Jessica admitted. "But I really did want to see you." That part was true. Before I could respond, the terrace doors opened, and Uncle Robert stepped out, his face hardening when he saw us together. "Jessica, your husband is looking for you," he said pointedly. With an apologetic glance at me, Jessica hurried inside, leaving me alone with Robert. "Enjoying the evening, Amelia?" he asked, his tone falsely pleasant. "Not particularly," I replied honestly, "though it's been illuminating." Something in my voice must have alerted him that I knew more than he'd like. His expression shifted, calculation replacing the false pleasantness. "Family gatherings can be complicated," he said carefully, "especially when some members have been distant." "Distant?" I repeated. "Is that what you call it? When someone's name is scratched out of the family tree? When they're seated as far from the family patriarch as physically possible? When they're served a child's meal as a form of humiliation?" Robert's jaw tightened. "You've been away a long time. You haven't contributed to this family or its legacy. You haven't earned your place." "I haven't earned my place," I echoed, a calm clarity settling over me. "And yet you and Grandfather have been using my name and reputation to shore up confidence in the family business. Does that seem fair to you?" His expression confirmed my words had hit their mark. "I don't know what Jessica has been telling you, but—" She didn't need to tell me much. "I work in finance, Uncle Robert. I know the signs of a business in trouble, and I know when I'm being used." Robert stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The Jackson family has weathered challenges for generations. We do what needs to be done to protect our name, our legacy." "My mother was a Jackson," I said quietly. "She lived with more integrity in her little finger than I've seen in this entire gathering. She taught me what family really means. And it isn't this." The terrace doors opened again, and my grandmother emerged, followed by Patricia and my grandfather. Their appearance had the feeling of a planned intervention. "Amelia," Grandmother said coolly, "I hope Robert has explained our expectations for the remainder of the weekend. There's a brunch tomorrow with some business associates who are eager to meet all members of the family." "Yes," Patricia added, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We should let bygones be bygones, dear. Family unity is so important right now. I looked at each of their faces. The grandmother who had offered financial support with impossible conditions, the aunt who had deliberately humiliated me at dinner, the uncle who had been using my name without permission, and the grandfather who had never acknowledged me as a true member of the family. I've learned something important this weekend, I said, keeping my voice steady and strong. My mother protected me more than I ever knew. She never told me how truly cruel this family was to her, how you used her mistakes to justify your treatment of both of us. She wanted me to believe better of you than you deserved. Their expressions registered shock at my directness, but I continued before they could interrupt. I came here because my mother asked me to try once more with you, not for your sakes, but for my own healing. I now understand what she meant. Seeing you all clearly understanding exactly who you are and what you value is incredibly healing. Because now I know with absolute certainty that I don't need your acceptance to be whole. Grandfather found his voice, anger making it shake slightly. You ungrateful after everything this family has provided. What exactly have you provided? I asked calmly. Conditional offers of help that always came with attempts to control occasional financial gestures that were more about easing your consciences than actually supporting us. My mother worked double shifts to put food on our table, while living less than 5 miles from this estate filled with wealth and privilege. You have no idea what challenges we're facing right now, Robert interjected. The family name is being investigated for financial irregularities. I finished for him. And suddenly having a family member with a sterling reputation in banking would be convenient. I understand perfectly. What I don't understand is why you thought humiliating me would make me eager to help. Patricia stepped forward, her expression shifting to conciliatory. Perhaps things got off on the wrong foot. We can start fresh tomorrow. All families have their difficulties, but at the end of the day, blood is thicker than water. My mother said something similar, I replied, but she added an important truth that sometimes the family you choose is more loyal than the family you're born into. I've made my choice. With those words, I walked past them back into the house, their stunned silence more satisfying than any further argument could have been. In that moment, standing up not just for myself, but for my mother's memory, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. The real family reunion, I understood then, wasn't with the Jacksons. It was with my own strength, my mother's values, and the truth about where I belonged, which had never been in this house of cold privilege and conditional love. I returned to my guest room with a strange sense of calm, as if a storm I had been bracing against for years had finally broken. Opening my overnight bag, I began to pack methodically, knowing I would not be staying for the brunch the following day, or any other family events. A knock at the door interrupted my packing. I opened it to find my grandfather standing there, his tall frame rigid with tension despite his age. This conversation isn't finished, he said, stepping into the room without invitation. I think it is, I replied, continuing to fold a sweater. I'll be leaving in the morning. That would be a mistake. His tone shifted, becoming more measured. The family is prepared to make it worth your while to stay to be part of presenting a united front during this temporary situation. I paused, looking at him directly. Are you offering me money to pretend we're a loving, functional family? He didn't flinch from the bluntness. I'm offering you what you've always wanted: acceptance into the Jackson family, along with the financial benefits that entails. A place on the board, a trust fund that should have been yours years ago. Should have been mine. You made it very clear nothing was mine by right. Everything had conditions. Perhaps that was a mistake, he conceded, though his expression suggested the words cost him. We're prepared to rectify it now. I resumed packing, a sense of lightness filling me, as I realized his offer held no temptation whatsoever. 10 years ago, that might have meant something to me. Even 5 years ago, but not now. Don't be foolish, Amelia. This is a substantial offer. And it comes with substantial strings, I'm sure. Be the good Jackson support the family narrative look the other way when questionable decisions are made. His silence confirmed my assessment. My mother taught me something valuable. I continued, zipping my bag closed. That integrity isn't something you can buy or sell. It's something you live every day in the choices you make. I've built my career on that principle. I won't compromise it now, not even for the acceptance I once craved from this family. A flash of something respect, perhaps, or simply surprise crossed his face before his expression hardened again. You're making an enemy of powerful people. No, I corrected him gently. I'm simply declining to be used by them. He left without another word, his departure lacking the dramatic exit I suspected he'd intended. I finished my packing, then sat by the window overlooking the gardens, thinking about my mother, and the strength it must have taken for her to walk away from all of this privilege to live a life of authenticity and love. Another knock came softer this time. Patricia stood in the hallway, her perfect composure slightly disheveled. "Amelia, dear, let's not be hasty," she said, forcing a smile. "There's been a misunderstanding. The family tree, the seating arrangement, simple oversights that we can correct. The wine on my dress was an oversight too, I suppose." She had the grace to look momentarily abashed before rallying. "We've all had a bit too much to drink. Tomorrow, with clear heads, we can start fresh. The family needs to present a unified image right now. Surely you understand that." "I understand completely," I said. "You need me more than I need you. That's a new dynamic for this family, isn't it?" Patricia's smile faltered. "You're being difficult. After everything the family has done, for me, very little. For themselves, while using my name without permission, apparently quite a lot." Then several more relatives made appearances at my door over the next hour. Robert, with thinly veiled threats about the consequences of opposing the family cousins, with awkward apologies, clearly orchestrated by their parents. Even my grandmother, with an icy reminder of family duty. I listened politely to each, but my decision remained unchanged. By midnight, the parade of persuasion had ended, and I set an early alarm for departure, before sleeping more peacefully than I had in years. As I was loading my bag into my car the next morning, Jessica hurried down the front steps of the mansion, still in pajamas covered by a hastily donned robe. "You're really leaving," she said, hugging herself against the morning chill. "I am. I don't blame you." She glanced back at the house. "I should have warned you what they were planning. I hoped maybe it could be different, that they might actually want to reconnect." "I know," I said, softening toward my cousin, who, for all her compliance with family expectations, seemed genuinely conflicted. "But it's better to see the truth clearly." "What will you do now about them using your name, I mean?" "Nothing vindictive," I assured her. "I'll simply continue living my life with integrity. The truth has a way of revealing itself without my intervention." Jessica looked as if she wanted to say more, but hesitated. Finally, she blurted, "They're nearly bankrupt. The Westfield acquisition was a desperate move to appear stable, but it's draining what resources they have left. Uncle Robert made some very bad investments, and Grandfather covered for him until they were in too deep." This confirmed what I had begun to suspect. That explains the sudden desire to reconnect with the successful family member they previously shunned. "There's more," Jessica continued, lowering her voice. "They've been using your name to secure meetings with potential investors, implying you're part of the family business, that you endorse their investment strategies." The audacity was breathtaking. "Without my knowledge or permission?" "Yes." She looked genuinely sorry. "I only found out recently. Mark, my husband, he works in finance too, and he heard your name mentioned in connection with the Jackson Group pitch. He was confused because he knew you weren't involved with the family business. I took this information in calmly. Thank you for telling me." "What will you do?" "Nothing that would harm innocent people caught in the crossfire," I assured her. "But I will make it clear to my professional contacts that I have no involvement with the Jackson Group." Jessica nodded, then impulsively hugged me. "I've missed you. The real you, not the version of you they've talked about all these years." I returned the hug, feeling a genuine connection that had been absent from all other family interactions. "Maybe we can have our own reunion sometime. Just us." "I'd like that." She stepped back, glancing again at the mansion where figures could be seen watching from various windows. "They'll be angry when they realize you've actually left." "They'll survive," I said with a small smile. "Jacksons always do right." As I drove away from the estate, I caught a final glimpse in my rearview mirror of the imposing house where generations of Jacksons had built their legacy. It looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than it had always appeared in my childhood memories. I made a brief stop before leaving town completely. There in the peaceful cemetery where my mother was buried, I placed fresh flowers and sat for a moment on the small bench beside her grave. "You were right, Mom," I said softly. "I needed to try once more, not for them, but for me. And now, I can let go without regret." The drive back to New York felt like a journey forward rather than a retreat. I had come seeking reconciliation and found something more valuable, the final confirmation that I had built a life that didn't require the Jackson family's approval or acceptance. In their rejection, they had given me the gift of complete freedom from the weight of their expectations. At a hotel halfway home, I made a single phone call to my firm's compliance officer, explaining briefly that my name might have been used without permission in connection with the Jackson Group. The matter would be handled discreetly but thoroughly, protecting both my professional reputation and any innocent investors who might have been misled. By the time I reached my apartment in New York, the weekend felt almost dreamlike in its distance from my real life. I had gone seeking family and found instead the certainty that I had already created the life and connections that truly mattered. My mother would have been proud not of the Jackson name, but of the strength, integrity, and independence she had instilled in me, despite all obstacles. Returning to my normal life in New York after the reunion proved easier than I expected. My apartment, once a symbol of distance from my family, now felt like a sanctuary I had created entirely on my own terms. I took Monday off to decompress, spent the morning at my favorite coffee shop, writing in my journal, and walked through Central Park in the afternoon, feeling lighter with each step. By Tuesday morning, when I returned to the office, I had achieved a clarity that felt almost like a superpower. The family that had once held such power over my sense of self-worth now seemed small and rather pitiful in their desperate machinations. I focused on my clients with renewed energy, appreciating the straightforward honesty of my professional relationships compared to the tangled web of family deception. The calls began on Wednesday first. Patricia, then Robert, finally my grandfather. I let them all go to voicemail, listening to their messages with a sense of detached curiosity, rather than the emotional turmoil such contact would have once caused. Patricia's voice was honeyed, apologetic. "Amelia, dear, we should talk about the misunderstanding. The family still wants to connect. Call me back when you can." Robert was more direct. "This silent treatment is childish, Amelia. The family has propositions that would benefit us all. Be reasonable." My grandfather's message was brief and cold. "Your behavior reflects poorly on the family name. We expect better from a Jackson." I saved the messages but responded to none. Instead, I met with our firm's legal counsel, explaining the situation candidly. My estranged family had potentially been using my name and professional reputation without permission to shore up their failing business ventures. Together, we drafted a simple cease and desist letter, not threatening legal action, but clearly establishing boundaries. What I did not do was actively seek to damage the Jackson Group. As I had told Jessica, I would not be vindictive. There was no need. The truth had its own momentum, and my responsibility was simply to ensure I was not complicit in any deception. The weeks that followed brought occasional updates from Jessica, who had become my sole link to family news. We began with cautious text messages and eventually graduated to monthly video calls, where we slowly rebuilt our cousin relationship on new, more honest footing. "They're still talking about you," she told me during one such call 3 weeks after the reunion. "Grandfather keeps saying you'll come around once you cool off." "They really don't understand, do they?" I mused, not particularly surprised. "I don't think they can. It would require acknowledging they were wrong, and that's not something Jacksons do." She paused, then added with a small smile, "Present company accepted." From Jessica, I learned that my departure had thrown the weekend's carefully orchestrated plans into disarray. The Sunday brunch with potential investors had proceeded without me, but my absence had raised questions they struggled to answer convincingly. Uncle Robert tried to say you were called away on urgent business, Jessica explained. But one of the investors mentioned he'd tried to contact you directly about the Jackson Group, and you'd replied that you had no involvement with family ventures. This was true. I had responded honestly to the handful of professional contacts who reached out with confusion about my supposed role in the family business. No accusations, no drama, simply clarifying that while I was biologically related to the Jacksons, I had no financial or professional ties to their business activities. The first real consequence came about a month after the reunion. Jessica called sounding both concerned and grimly satisfied. "It's starting to unravel," she said without preamble. "The bank has frozen some of the family accounts pending an investigation. Uncle Robert is in full panic mode." I felt no pleasure at this news, only a sad acknowledgement that actions eventually yield consequences. "Are you and your family okay?" I asked, concerned for my cousin, who, despite her occasional complicity, had shown genuine remorse. "We're fine. Mark kept our finances separate from the family business years ago. He never trusted Uncle Robert's investment strategies." "Smart man," I commented. "Smarter than I gave him credit for," she admitted. "Listen, you should know they're still trying to use your name somehow. I've heard them discussing how to leverage the family connection despite everything." "Thank you for telling me. My legal team is aware and monitoring the situation." The following month brought news via financial circles rather than family ones. A client mentioned casually during a meeting that he'd heard the once prestigious Jackson Group was facing serious difficulties. "Credit cards declined at a major client dinner," he said, shaking his head. "Embarrassing stuff. Weren't you related to them somehow?" "Distantly," I replied, neither confirming nor denying the connection. "I've never been involved in their business." This pattern continued small, then larger signs of the Jackson Group's financial collapse reaching me through various channels. I maintained my policy of non-involvement, neither helping nor hindering their increasingly desperate attempts to salvage their situation. 6 weeks after the reunion, I received an unexpected email from Jessica with an attachment. "Thought you might want to see this," her message read. "They're planning an emergency family meeting next month. You're on the invitation list despite everything." The attached invitation was less ornate than the reunion one had been, the language more urgent. "The Jackson family requests your presence to discuss matters of critical importance to the future of the family legacy." I drafted a brief professional response. "Thank you for the invitation. Unfortunately, I have prior commitments and will be unable to attend. I wish the family well in resolving their current challenges." Jessica reported later that my response had been met with fury by Uncle Robert and resigned acceptance by my grandfather, who finally seemed to understand that I could not be manipulated or coerced back into the fold. "The meeting was grim," she told me. "Basically, an announcement that most of the family assets will have to be liquidated to cover debts. The estate will be sold by year's end." The news should have felt like victory, perhaps even vindication. But I felt only a quiet sadness for what could have been a family built on mutual respect and genuine care, rather than appearance and control. "I'm sorry, Jess, for everyone involved." "Don't be. Maybe it needed to happen. Things built on lies eventually collapse." As the Jackson financial empire continued its slow but inevitable implosion, I focused on building something different. Not an empire, but a network of genuine connections. I started a small monthly gathering for colleagues who, like me, were separated from their families of origin for various reasons. What began as casual dinners evolved into a supportive community, where people shared honestly about their journeys toward creating chosen families. Inspired by these connections, I established a foundation in my mother's name to provide scholarships for students raised by single parents, creating a legacy that honored her sacrifices and strength, rather than the Jackson name and its tarnished prestige. Jessica and her family eventually moved to Chicago, permanently distancing themselves geographically from the family drama. We maintained our renewed relationship, sharing holidays occasionally, and building the kind of family connection based on choice rather than obligation. On the anniversary of my mother's death, I visited her grave again, bringing flowers and a sense of peace I hadn't felt in previous years. "I think I finally understand what you were trying to teach me," I said, sitting on the small bench beside her resting place. "Family isn't about shared blood or names. It's about who shows up, who loves without conditions, who celebrates your success rather than trying to use it for their own ends." And in my apartment that evening, I opened a bottle of my mother's favorite wine and raised a glass to her memory. On my living room wall hung a new family tree, not the traditional kind based on bloodlines, but an artistic representation of the connections I had built through choice and mutual respect. Friends who had become family mentors, who had guided me, even Jessica and her children, occupying meaningful branches in this new conception of belonging. As summer turned to fall, news of the Jackson family continued to reach me through Jessica and occasional financial circles. The estate had indeed been sold my grandfather and grandmother, moving to a much smaller home. Uncle Robert was facing possible legal consequences for some of his business practices. The extended family had scattered, many facing financial reality for the first time in generations. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, only a growing certainty that I had made the right choice in walking away. Their cards had indeed bounced financially and metaphorically, not because of any action on my part, but because reality eventually catches up to illusion. In the end, the greatest revenge wasn't something I actively pursued, but simply the life I continued to build successful on my own terms, surrounded by genuine connections free from the toxic legacy of conditional love and manipulation that had defined the Jackson family for generations. My mother had been right all along. Real family is measured by love, not blood. Success is defined by integrity, not appearances. And sometimes the most powerful response to rejection isn't anger or vengeance, but the quiet dignity of walking away and building something better. Have you ever had to walk away from toxic family members to preserve your own well-being? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose your own definition of family. Remember, sometimes the family we create is more valuable than the one we're born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you courage if you're facing your own difficult family situations.